we have a special guest right now. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to spend time with Ben Golliver from the Washington Post. Ben was just in Las Vegas in the New York Knicks locker room after the game. The picture we sent out on social media is Ben with the NBA Cup. Ben is just totally immersed in the NBA, and whenever we have Ben on, you are getting it right from the source. The guy standing at the sideline, talking to all the best players, talking to the owners, the managers, best of the best in Ben Golliver. So we're going to have two segments right now from our conversation from yesterday, and I would encourage you to listen to the entire interview because Ben is very generous with his time. And the entire interview will be on our podcast of The Deep Dive after the show is over. And Josh, of course, posts it for us. So here's my conversation with Ben Golliver. Welcome to The Deep Dive on the Hoop City with Paul Sir weekly show. And I'm really pleased to welcome back into our discussion Ben Golliver from the Washington Post. Ben, you just got back from Sin City. Talk about the experience of the NBA Cup. I mean, there's lots to discuss, sort of lots to unpack around the Cup, its validity, et cetera. But talk about the product on the floor itself.
Well, it's a quirky event, right? I mean, it's kind of at a weird time in the NBA calendar. People are really thinking about, football down here in November and December. But if you look at the games were really good. The Knicks put on a show, beating the Orlando Magic in the semifinals. We got maybe the game of the year between the Spurs and the Thunder, a big upset, only Oklahoma City's second loss of the entire season, and Victor Wembanyama playing a great game in the other semifinal. And then the final was a really competitive game that I thought had a lot of layers to it. It kind of swung on offensive rebounding for Mitchell Robinson, the size and the length of Mitchell Robinson holding Wembanyama in check. And, honestly, it was a great scene afterwards, too. One of my favorite moments was Spike Lee, the famous director and huge Knicks fan. He actually got down low with his cell phone camera. He was having the directorial impulses kick in. He wanted to get just the right angle to capture the trophy celebration, where Adam Silver's given Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, the first trophy the Knicks have won in more than 50 years, right? So it's quirky. Nobody really knows how to celebrate. The guys were just kind of quietly drinking beers, not really popping champagne in the locker room. But certainly I thought it was, one of the better cups that we've had so far. There's only been three. And, it maybe made up for some so-so crowds in Vegas. It's not the craziest basketball plays. Like I said, it's a weird time of year, but we certainly got great basketball and a fun scene, even if the crowds weren't, electric.
They did a good job of masking it on the broadcast. You really didn't get the sense that it was as poorly, and I think that's a fair word, disappointingly attended as I think the NBA would have liked it to be. But you hit it right on the head, Ben, in terms of quality of play on the court. Very, very good. Very compelling. Now, a question I have regarding the San Antonio Spurs is, did they discover anything in their victory over the Thunder? Now, I feel a little prophetic. I'm going to toot my own horn here. Last weekend on our show, I made a special point of talking about the potential of this San Antonio Spur outfit without Wembanyama, the success they've had. But this is a very talented group, and it somewhat reminds me in many respects of OKC. So I kind of rambled a bit on you there, but let's go back to the original point. Did they unpack anything that other teams can learn from in terms of how they play the Thunder?
Well, I think all season long we've asked, well, who actually poses matchup problems for the Thunder, right? Because it feels like they dictate style, they dictate pace, they speed you up, they make you uncomfortable with their defense. And then they have the best closer in the NBA with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So you're looking around saying, like, this is pretty challenging to come up with, like, who's going to knock these guys off. Typically, we always come back to Joker and say, well, he's the biggest, best player in the league, so he's going to give you some problems. But I think we saw that Wembanyama can really give them some problems, too. The reason why I say that is the defensive impact. He just completely took away the paint. The Thunder did not want to challenge him when he was on the court. And so much about Oklahoma City's offense is drive and kick, or it's Shea getting to his spots inside the arc. And you kind of saw all that stuff dry up. They didn't get to the free throw line a ton, especially Shea. Jalen Williams had a really tough time finishing, and he likes to go to the basket a lot. And it puts all the pressure on Oklahoma City's three-point shooters. And if they have one weakness as a team, it's just the spotty three-point shooting from the complementary guys. In an ideal world, you want to force their other guys to beat you. You do not want the ball in Shea's hands. And what the Spurs showed is we can defend Shea without having to commit 2 and 3 defenders, because we could just take away his best spots, going towards the hoop. Now, I know the Thunder are going to be making adjustments. I mean, there's no question they're going to be able to kind of figure something like this out. But what it does do is kind of set up, I think, an interesting rivalry going forward, where the Spurs aren't quite ready yet, but they're definitely ahead of schedule. And they have a player who has the potential to be the best player on the court in a playoff series against Oklahoma City. And there are very, very few teams around the league that can say that.
That was my point last weekend, is they have the generational player and the generational nightmare of a matchup. Like, what do you do with 7'5" with the skill set that this young man possesses? Like, it really is ludicrous when you see him handling the ball, coming down the court and pulling up from 5 feet outside the 3-point line, and not knocking down 1, knocking down 2 or 3 consecutively. Like, he really is a marvelous, marvelous talent. And let's just all hope he is healthy for the rest of the year. Now, the other day on PTI, pardon the interruption, Kornheiser and Wilbon were talking about, should the Spurs try to make a move to pick up Giannis? And Tony, no. Michael, yes. I would fall in the definite no camp, because the notion that you can win right now, that is alluring. But I mean, they have done exactly what OKC has done. They have drafted intelligently. They are building systematically. They've been extremely patient. With all their success in the past, they've had a rough go the last few years, but they've been patient, stuck with their plan, and now it's starting to bear fruit. What are your thoughts? Is a move like that, does it make any sense? Or should they try to get into the sweepstakes for Giannis? Or should they just stay the course?
Well, I used to be in the camp that said trade for Giannis going back to last summer, because I felt like it just would give them an inside-outside duo that nobody could really deal with. It's like the most modern version of, Tim Duncan and David Robinson, like this Twin Towers that would just wreak havoc on everybody. Since I've seen Castle play this season, he's really come along faster than I thought. And since I've seen Harper hit the ground running, those are all looking like great draft picks, and they're looking like they're going to have a long window. So I think the idea to make a win now move right now after you already traded for Fox, I'm not sure there's a ton of logic in that if you're San Antonio. I just did a big study on injuries in the NBA. Obviously, they're up like crazy compared to sort of past eras, and people are attributing it to pace and space. And one of my conclusions, and this might sound a little wild, but if I was an NBA team, I don't know if there's a single player over 30 years old that I would trade for besides Joker, because the rate of injury is just incredibly high among star players. And the guys who get up into that 30-plus zone, they're on the big-time max contracts, right? They're making $50+ million a year. Here's a stat for you, Paul. 30 NBA players, the highest paid 30 NBA players this year, are on track to make $525 million specifically for games they don't play in due to injury. That's basically a third of the total salary you're paying those top 30 guys is just basically a write-off, because they're not even on the court, this season. We're seeing calf injuries, obviously the Achilles injuries. We're seeing a lot of wear and tear muscle stuff because of the pace and space, like I mentioned. And we're seeing Giannis repeatedly get injured here over the last 3 to 4 years. And so if you really want to build around a team right now, what's working is not the big 3-star model. What's working is lots of young legs, depth, and cost-controlled contracts, flexibility. So if you need to plug in different players, you're able to do that. And I think San Antonio would be sacrificing a lot of those things if they traded for Giannis. And so that's why I say they could take the slower road. And there may be other trades available that aren't quite as expensive as a Giannis trade would be. Because not only do you have to pay Giannis, which is a lot lot of money, right? He's going to want a new contract, but you also got to give up draft picks. You got to give up players to get him. And so I wouldn't do it if I was San Antonio.
Welcome back to Hoop City with Paul Sir. We're going to continue with part 2 of my interview with Ben Golliver, and I think that I really encourage you. You're doing yourself a favor. Take some time and listen to our podcast that we'll post afterwards on your favorite podcast provider. Listen to the entire interview with Ben. You just can't get better insights than this into the world of hoops. Is the best version of the Lakers as they get into the season, presuming that Austin is healthy. I think the best version of the Lakers is Luka, Austin, LeBron, and LeBron is a complementary player, just like you were referring to with Houston. Would you agree with that assessment, Ben?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, one issue the Lakers offense has had is that it's been very ISO heavy because Luka and Austin are so good as one-on-one players. But
yes,
as you get into like the big games, the premier opponents, the playoffs, you have to have more ball movement. You have to have more point of attack. You have to keep Aiden involved. You have to make sure you've got 5 threats on the court at all times. Even if they're not all big time scorers, you want to have more of a team dynamic as opposed to a 1-on-5 approach, right? That's really what LeBron has helped with, right? It's the connecting, the distributing. When he's in that number 3 role, he can step up as an outside shooter. He can step up as a guy who can cut if necessary, to kind of, find some stuff. But really what he's bringing to the table that nobody else does is that secondary passing, whereas like you're keeping the bigs involved. You're finding the open shooter on the weak side. You're surprising the defense. You're attacking the weak side of the defense. LeBron is, overqualified to do those kinds of things. The best third option in NBA history, if you want to call him that, right?
Absolutely.
But it's been a successful role for him. I think the challenge, though, is the defensive end. The offense, it's been very, very good. It's not like the best in the league, but, it's consistently top 5, top 10. But if your defense isn't better than somewhere in the 20s, which is what it's been this season, you're dead on arrival going to the playoffs. You'll be lucky to win a first-round series, and you'll probably lose a first-round series. And the last time I checked, every team below the Lakers in the defensive rankings, all were losing teams below 500, right? And so that kind of tells you everything you need to know. You can't be the worst defense in the playoffs and expect to go anywhere. And so I feel like it's going to have to be personnel changes to get that improvement. I don't think it's a matter of they need time to gel. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's strictly they don't have enough good on-ball perimeter defenders especially when they're relying so heavily on Reeves and Doncic for big minutes. Like they have to have more help there. And so I don't know if they can do it without, potentially reallocating the money that's going to LeBron, right? I mean, if you're going to keep him all season and not trade him, and that seems like the way it's trending, he has the no trade clause. He's making $50-something million and not addressing this gigantic hole, right? If you fast forward to this summer and you have a decision, if you're the Lakers, do we pay LeBron big money again, or do we invest that $50 million in 3 defensive pieces, sort of like the Mavericks were trying to build around Luka, going to get a Daniel Gafford and a PJ Washington? Well, you plug those guys on the Lakers, they're better. It's just they're a better, more stable two-way team, right? So I think it's setting up a real showdown. At some point here is, how much is LeBron really worth to the Lakers versus how much money do they need to set aside to make sure they can cover up some of their flaws? And by the way, Reeves needs a big new raise as well heading into next season. So some of that money is going to have to go to Austin Reeves, who clearly represents part of their future. He's a very popular fan favorite here in Los Angeles. So I guess long story short, I don't think the Lakers can cover every base with their current big 3. It's just they can't play good enough defense with those 3 guys all making big money. So they're going to have to kind of figure out who's the odd man out.
I totally agree. I think that's a wonderful assessment, odd man out. And what I'm curious about is we've touched on this in past conversations about how franchises tend to make the same mistake over and over again. Portland drafting big men with bad feet, that sort of thing. LeBron, I mean, you've got the prime example of holding on for dear life with Kobe for far too long in terms of crippling the franchise's future by mortgaging the house to pay Kobe. What he, I guess, in one sense deserves that to me is an interesting part of the NBA and pro sports in general. Is your longevity leads to a lucrative your most lucrative contract when your play is starting to decline the fastest.
Right.
It's a real interesting contradiction in business thought.
Yeah, well, the NBA is the land of the golden parachute, is what you're saying.
Yeah, land of the golden parachute, like depreciating assets that you're valuing far higher than what they're actually able to produce on the court in this particular case. It is interesting about the Lakers, just watching them. They really are Luka's a marvel on offense. Reeves is just having a phenomenal breakout season, but my God, on defense, they are atrocious, really, really god awful. And their support players are just bad. They're just bad. I mean, Rui's having a nice season. He's a nice little piece, but man, when you go into the bench, that's a brutal group. Utah is interesting. You can see what the Angels are doing there. And it appears like they are going the OKC route in trying to build up. They've got some nice pieces there. They really do.
My favorite story coming out of Utah is the Keontae George situation. If you look at some of the advanced numbers for his first year, I think he was pretty much the worst player in the league, or one of the bottom five, worst players by something like win shares, which tries to capture your impact and everything you're doing on the court. It was the classic young guard, super inefficient, can't defend anybody, doesn't know how to run an offense, just kind of overwhelmed. I mean, we've seen even all-star guys like Darius Garland have a similar acclamation to the NBA, right? And the way the story is told, Will Hardy kind of sat Keontae George down last year, took away his minutes at times and said, basically, if you don't play defense or if you don't do the things you're supposed to be doing, you don't get to start, and it was one of those kind of tough coaching moments. It sounds like they had kind of a hard conversation last summer as well. I'm just reading the reports on this, but, essentially, again, saying, hey, if you want to be our guy, these are the things we need you to do. And he has come back much better. And maybe it's because if you played the Lakers every night, you're always going to look good, if you're a small guard. But he's had some real big scoring explosions against the Lakers this year. And he's definitely taken a big jump in his career. And so it finally looks like one of their draft picks may be hit. They've had a tough time in terms of the lottery luck in the recent years, where it always feels like they're drafting one or two spots below where the true talent is. And so, you're starting to collect this potpourri, chilly version of the team, but it doesn't really fit together. And you don't have that singular player. Obviously, their best guy is Lauri Markkanen, but I think most people would agree. I mean, he's probably the third best player on a championship team, not the best player, certainly not the second best player, right? So tough spot for them to be in. That's why coming into the season, everybody thought that they would probably be one of the big tankers, try to go out there and get AJ DeBanza from BYU, the Utah connection. And instead, they're really outperforming expectations, I think, because some of these guys are coming together. So, to me, I just like hearing that story about George, because it tells you there's still people out there trying to coach these guys, right? There's still an idea in the NBA that there can be accountability, that there can be standards. And it's not just we're going to roll the ball out and anything goes. And, hey, if you can score 25, don't worry about anything else. I mean, that's not the right message to win, right? And so I do think Will Hardy, he's kind of like a thorn in the side of the front office, where they wanted the high draft picks, and he says, you know what, I'm going to outperform that. I'm going to keep giving you a team where every time there's a trade deadline, you have to trade away half the team so that we could be bad enough to get the pick that you want, because it feels like he just continually is just boosting them up a little bit higher than they expect.
You're listening to The Deep Dive with Paul Sir. My guest is Ben Golliver of the Washington Post. We're talking all things NBA. So let's wrap things up. I've got two final questions for you, Ben. Biggest story not named Cooper Flagg from this last year in the NBA.
Oh, I thought you meant from this draft class, and I was thinking, you want to talk Con Knipple maybe, or Dylan Harper?
We can definitely do that, because the draft class has been really something special. Harper and Knipple have been incredible.
I mean, to me, the biggest story, and maybe this ties in a little bit with the NBA Cup, it would be the gambling scandals, right? I mean, it's still kind of unresolved. I saw Chauncey Billups sold his house recently as he's kind of preparing for a lengthy legal drama. The Blazers replaced him on an interim basis with Thiago Splitter, but he's not the full-time coach. They haven't officially fired Chauncey Billups. Terry Rozier is hanging in Miami as maybe a trade chip, maybe not. The Heat are letting everybody know we had no idea about this scandal before we acquired him. We should get our draft pick back because, we wouldn't have done this trade if we knew it was going to be, such a circus. And, you look at the NBA, they're talking about moving the NBA Cup out of Vegas. Well, a good reason to move it out of Vegas is because, maybe a little distance from the city where some of Chauncey Billups' poker games were going on and just the entire implication of gambling. And then even bigger than that would be this idea of expansion. Adam Silver came out this week and said, well, next year we are going to have a firm decision on are we going to expand, whether it's Seattle, Las Vegas, or who knows. And obviously those are the leading cities. And if you're the NBA again, does expanding to Las Vegas in the middle of a giant gambling scandal where the FBI is involved and a sitting head coach and a player who was a starter for many years and Terry Rozier are all wrapped up in it, it just feels like it's kind of hanging over the league and hanging over the league's integrity. So, I think we're just sort of waiting for that maybe to run its course, to see what kind of legal hot water these guys are in and to see, how the NBA adjusts or doesn't adjust as it goes forward. It feels to me like their wholesale embrace of gambling in general has kind of stayed the same. It hasn't been, major new initiatives. They haven't dropped any partners. Maybe the distance from Vegas is the one thing that we could see. But, to me, I do feel like that is one of the biggest deals because every night you see some calls like, I don't know if you saw the Blazers-Kings game last night where Denny is racing up the court and he, quote unquote, gets fouled by Russell Westbrook. And you watch the replay. It doesn't seem like there's any contact between those two players. He shoots 2 free throws and that's the game. They win, right? And it used to be, oh, the refs suck. We don't like the refs. Now when you look at comments on a play like that, it's the NBA is rigged. The NBA is rigged. They want, Vegas, they want this outcome, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very hard to get your reputation back. It's very hard to reclaim credibility, when you have an open scandal, right? And when you really haven't made any major initiatives to address the issue. And so, to me, I think that's, other than the injury issue that we talked about earlier, that's what concerns me the most. I want people to believe and I want the league to, be 100% on the up and up, where you feel like every night you're getting a fairly refereed game, where you feel like wins and losses are the most important thing, not dollars and cents. And, I think unfortunately for the NBA, they've been wrapped up in this thing all season.
Well, they have. And when you sell your soul, which they have, to gambling, you reap what you sow. And
you make your bed, huh?
You really have. You really have. And it's hard to now try to put the halo back in place because the horns are there. And now you've got this huge scandal that's looming and like you said, there's just so many calls and so many games you go, this is not worthy of this league to have officiating like that, determining oftentimes outcomes of games, actual outcomes of games. And man, oh man, we've come way too far to have that be such an important part of the game. One of the annoying things about watching an NBA game is the commercials, all gambling, those god-awful gambling commercials that are just the worst in the world. And you're just bombarded with that. And I think, Mike, what's that doing to kids? And then, that can link into a whole just rabbit hole of NIL money trickling down into colleges, into high schools, and how that's just changing the whole psychology of the game. But let's look ahead, 2026. What do you think the biggest story is going to be when this NBA season wraps up? Is it going to be a Thunder repeat, or is it going to be something else?
Well, I think that there's a chance we're going to get history from the Thunder. I think that there's a really good chance they win 70, and I think they got a shot at winning 74. And I think that, if you flash back a decade when Golden State was going on their run, what you saw was that momentum really built after the All-Star break. Now, they came out of the gate just like the Thunder. I mean, it was like 24-0 for Golden State. So They announced their arrival. They set the tone. It was clear, like, these guys mean business. And they were such a star-studded team that they carried the entire league from a narrative standpoint that whole season, right up to the end when they blew it. And the 3-1 lead. it goes down in history as one of the craziest finals of all time, right?
Absolutely.
But I think with the Thunder, they have the discipline and they have the night-to-night consistency. They have the depth. They just have every base covered. Their defense is so good that I think if they continue on this current pace after the All-Star break, they're not as star-studded as those Warriors teams were. They don't have a Jordan. They got Shea. I love Shea. You love Shea. I know everybody up in your neck of the wood loves Shea, but he is not that. He's not that resonant Jordan Curry figure, right? Now, their numbers are pretty similar. Statistics are pretty similar. They're winning games just like those guys won games, but just the fame factor maybe isn't there. But I think once you really start to, if they're on like a count where it's like, hey, they're on pace for 75, they're on pace for 76, they haven't lost in a month, they just ripped off another 12-game winning streak, like that kind of thing, there's a chance that Oklahoma City is going to get quite a bit more attention this year than even they did last year when they were the best team in the league as well. Because I think that there's just kind of this rallying effect when history is at stake where, I remember in 2016, I never thought Jordan's 72-10 record would go down. I made a point to go to the last game up in the Bay Area because I wanted to see it to believe it. I wanted to actually believe they could get 73.
Were there.
I was there. But it's a funny story, Paul, because I had the choice that night. Do I go see Golden State win 73 or do I watch Kobe's last game? And I made what most people would say was the wrong choice because, Kobe went out gunning and, I wound up seeing them a very routine victory over the Memphis Grizzlies, which wound up not being as historic as it could be once they lost the finals. And, it's no longer the greatest season ever, right? If you don't have the championship. So anyway, I think Oklahoma City not only has a chance to win 70, like I said, third team ever, chance to get 74, which would be most wins ever, chance for the highest point differential of all time, especially down the stretch of this season when teams are tanking and getting ready for the draft. I mean, there's going to be a lot of wins available to them. And then they have a chance to go back-to-back, which we haven't seen since the Warriors in 2017 to 2018. That makes them the story to me. I think that puts them right on center stage, and I think that could get a lot of people interested here to see how does this team in the middle of nowhere, quote unquote, with all these young guys, how do they just do it at this pace, in a pace that we've never seen before?
Well, and I agree with you, particularly about the fact that they are in the middle of nowhere, because they really are. I mean, Oklahoma City, that is an island in the middle of the prairies, and to have the kind of franchise that they have, the kind of organization that they have to accomplish what they are, the way I think they've reshaped the way the NBA sees itself. I think all of those impacts are really something special. So I agree. I think that's going to be an intriguing part of the season. My final thought would be, can San Antonio or Denver do the thing when they match up? And, you see signs and you go, if you can figure a little more out about Shea's game, and that's where it comes in. It's kind of like what you were describing with Miami. It's a gimmick. Shea's game is not gimmicky, but people are going to be scratching their heads, configuring things, trying to figure out how can we make someone else beat us. Like you said, if they have an Achilles heel, it is inconsistent 3-point shooting from their spot up, third through eighth man on the rotation, that might not be able to consistently knock it down. And Indiana took them to 7 games. That still amazes me, to think that this poor, woeful Indiana Pacer game last year took OKC to 7 games. It can happen. So it's going to be really intriguing.
You'll love a quote from Las Vegas. Steph Castle said, "Hey, beating Oklahoma City shows that we're serious," because people were saying they were unbeatable. And that unbeatable word is one of those that should always raise sports fans' ears, right? It should always get you paying attention a little bit closer, because rarely is a team unbeatable. An undefeated season in football is pretty rare. College football is very rare. Never happened in basketball, right? I mean, everybody's beatable on a given night. And Indiana took them to 7. Denver took them to 7. Maybe a little bit better health luck, a little bit worse shooting luck for Oklahoma City. Those series could have gone the other way. And they're also going to be having pretty heavy legs, because they made a deep run last year when a lot of other teams, San Antonio was on vacation. Wemby was in China with the monks, right? So those kinds of things tend to catch up to people when they get to the playoffs, right? So I think it's going to be a fascinating postseason run. I wouldn't be surprised at all if I'm spending a decent amount of time back there in Oklahoma City. I really enjoyed my time last year there. And I got to say, it's arguably the best coach team I've ever seen in the NBA in terms of their night-to-night preparedness, effort level. I mean, that's the hardest part in the NBA is to get guys to play hard, because everybody's got the guaranteed contracts and there's always another game. So, you don't play well tonight, you can always make up for it tomorrow. Those kinds of human nature things Oklahoma City has just conquered. Every night they play hard, and it's been a sight to behold. So I look forward to that certainly in 2026 and beyond.
I love when certain teams pull the rest of the league up to a new level by setting an example that everybody else knows now. There's a benchmark, and the water table is actually higher than where we thought it was before. Yeah, and they certainly have done that.
Well, they've scared some people too. You send them back to the tank race. There's some teams who are saying, "Hey, that water's too deep for us. That's
right.
We gotta go find some younger talent, and maybe we'll try again in a couple of years." Right? It's funny how that works out. The Golden State had the same thing, by the way. There was a lot of teams back in the mid 2010s who said, "Hey, we don't have a shot here." Cleveland said, "Oh yeah, we're going to be able to do it. Let's load up and let's go toe to toe with them." San Antonio, same deal. And then there were some other teams that said, "Hey, check back with us in a couple of years. We're going to go get some lottery picks."
We're going to jump in the pool right away.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Well, Merry Christmas, Ben. Thank you so much for this. And I'll look forward to talking with you early in the new year. I hope you have a great time with your family. Thanks for all the time, all the insights. It's a great pleasure. It truly is.
It's my pleasure. Happy holidays to you and yours. And, hope you get some Cancun time or something here to break up this winter, maybe, huh?
Well, no, we need that. We need that. But you know what? I was out playing tennis this morning. You can't beat it. It's 30 below. I'm walking into the tennis court and I'm going, this is great. I'm still hitting the ball.
Lungs of steel. Lungs of steel.
That's right. Take care, Ben.
All right. Take care.
Ben Golliver, Washington Post, joining me on the Hoop City with Paul Sir here on Sports 1440.
Josh's playlist today, as these are their favorite songs. Guys, do you know who that singer was? Do you know who that was?
I'm very aware that it was Burl Ives.
You are aware?
Yeah.
You're musical theater.
This is a Fenwick family classic right here.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Burl Ives. Now, Burl Ives was also a great actor, along with being this very, kind of a large man, beard, kind of had a grandfatherly look about him, but he was a great actor. He Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with Paul Newman and Elizabeth Taylor, great westerns. So very versatile. So not only do you get great hoops talk, you get a musical education every week here as well.
And we might be able to get a performance out of you one of these days.
One of these days. You never know. You never know. Now, I did sing the national anthem once. We were in Indiana, and we went to we went to a couple of great gyms when I was with the Edmonton Energy back in 2008. We did this this Eastern swing. And we went to this one place in Muncie, Indiana, and they had this great old gym that was part of the CBA way back in the day in basketball crazy Indiana. And when we got to game time, they didn't have the Canadian national anthem. So I said, give me the mic, I'll sing it. So we sang it, and we even had the guys on the team, the Energy, Lee Scruggs, all these guys singing the Canadian national anthem, and the Americans were a bit perplexed as to what was actually going on. But it's so easy to digress.
They were perplexed because somebody actually knew the Canadian anthem.
Or somebody was dumb enough to sing it with a very I have a decent voice, but it's pretty mediocre. So nobody was going home asking to get it on Spotify. That's for sure. So. Couple of things, guys, before we have to wrap the show up today. Manib, you had a question about Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I think this class has been very, very good. Obviously, we expected, I think, coming into the year for it to be a little bit deeper of a class. We knew that the first couple picks were going to be good. Obviously, the Cooper Flags and the big names and things. But I was a little bit curious. Obviously, we are 30 games into the year, maybe 25 games into the year. Quarter way through, is there a solidified Rookie of the Year in your eyes? Or obviously we need to see a little bit more, but who are the guys that have stood out to you?
Well, the big three to me are, I think Con Kneppel has exceeded expectations. I don't think the question, it's real interesting because the question for him coming out of Duke was, is he athletic enough to compete in the NBA? And he certainly has blown that consideration out of the water. Fabulous start with a mediocre Charlotte Hornets team. So one of the great things for a rookie like him who has the confidence and the aggressiveness to go out there, wouldn't it be great if Grady Dick had 10% of Kneppel's aggressiveness when he's out there playing? I mean, they're very different players, but when I watch Grady play, I go, man, first of all, how did they pick him for the shaving commercials? How in the world? The guy doesn't even, I don't even think he has to shave.
Yeah, they should have picked Jamal Shadd.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Grady Dick. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's just a terrible choice. T-Mac, and by the way, T-Mac didn't call him in his bathroom before practice. So, but anyway, I think Con Kneppel, if you had to pick today, I would probably pick Kneppel. Harper from San Antonio is a sleeper. Boy, is that guy good. I'm curious to see what his numbers are going to be like for the entire year. And I think this goes to your point, Manib, is do we need the whole year? Because Cooper Flagg is really coming on, not just in terms of offensive numbers and productivity, but his ability to impact the entire game with his versatility as well. I mean, the other night, Dallas is winning basketball games now that Davis is healthy. And he really is already I think he's turning 19 today.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, already he is, I think, an upper echelon, upper 20% of the league right now in terms of what he's able to do.
Well, this was the reason why he was the number one pick. Obviously, there was a lot of hype around Cooper Flagg, and I think he has started to. I didn't love that they thought he should play point guard.
Well, didn't love it. It was the dumbest thing. I mean, Jason Kidd, that was so stupid.
Jason Kidd might have been starting him at point guard to get Nico fired.
Oh, that
Good
is
point.
This is.
Josh,
I'm not trying to
this.
put on a tinfoil hat or anything.
Who shot Kennedy, Josh? Is Elvis still alive?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh, you might
Walt
be
Disney is on the moon, though.
Cryogenically frozen.
Yeah, another name
revived on the moon.
Another name in there should be Derek Queen, I think.
Absolutely.
What I would add to that, I think New Orleans might have two. I think Jeremiah Fears, I think, has to be in that conversation as well.
That was my pick going into the year of rookie who might not win Rookie of the Year, but will make a big impact.
Yeah, I think that's
strictly because Zero Fears is his jersey.
Yeah, and VJ Edgecombe, I think there's
he's nice. He's really nice. Even Ace Bailey the other night against the Lakers, which was a great game. Because it was like a pickup game at the YMCA. There was zero defense by either team. It was marvelous to watch the offensive onslaughts by both teams. But my gosh, the Lakers, they're desperately trying to address their defensive deficiencies right now. Josh, before I forget, what are our poll results today?
Yeah, so last week people were very bullish on the Thunder. A lot of 76 wins to finish the season. It's very much shifted this week. The leading vote is 70 wins. They'll finish with 70-ish wins at the end of the season.
We have
not too shabby.
We have such a smart fan base because I think we all have to pay attention this week, and it raises our eyebrows. You have to look at the Thunder and go, well, wait a second, they are beatable. There are things that good teams can do to compete with this team. So I think that's a good adjustment, and I think it was a good question to ask this week because last week they were just tearing everybody up. I think everybody expected them to roll through the NBA Cup, and then those darn San Antonio Spurs and that absolute marvel of nature, Victor Wembanyama. My gosh. What he can do at 7'4", whatever he is, 7'4", 7'5", but what he does is it's just marvelous. Manib, again, your show, Sunday mornings.
Sunday morning, 9 a.m.
9 a.m. here on Sport 1440. Join them. Great sport talk. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Love the show.
This is an especially hard time this time of year for myself and my family as we remember our son Ben, who left us far too early, almost 3 years ago. But the way Ben lived his life is, I think, so in keeping with what the true meaning of Christmas really is, which is to be kind to each other, to be giving to each other, and to think the best of each other. So if you have people in your life that you need to connect with them now. Don't wait. Connect with them now. Think the best of others. Have a wonderful holiday season. Josh, thank you so much for everything. I hope you have a great Christmas. We're taking a couple of weeks off. We'll be back on the air on January 10th. And I also want to encourage you, please listen to our podcast. Josh, thank you for all that you do.
I'm happy to do it, Paul, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the new year.
Can't wait. And everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, stay safe, have a wonderful holiday season. You've been listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir on your sports leader, Sports 1440.